Welcome back, everybody, to the best guild in all of Ravnica, the Art Guild. And I am excited because today we are going over Hunger by Brandon O'Brien, and we are going to cover how it has become my favorite short story out of every story that has come out so far. Both side stories and main story included. Housekeeping this time around is going to be really short, but I just want to thank you all for the support in the live stream that I did. It was really an impromptu thing that I wanted to do because I just wanted to have like video evidence of the booster box that I opened for the contest I ran on Twitter, which the winner has been announced and their cards have already been mailed out. Hopefully they enjoy it and it gets there safely. But I wanted to have proof of the video that I took, so I was just going to record myself opening and then uploading afterwards, but I decided to just make it a live stream out of just happenstance, and a bunch of you guys, like a lot more people, went to go see it than I expected, so thank all of you for joining for that. It was really fun, and it helped have the conversation going between a lot of you. I already sold all of the money cards. I sent the giveaway winner his cards. I kept the lithoform engine for myself, and then I went and buy listed the fetch land, all of the foil rares, all of the mythics, and all of it. Basically, all the list cards that I got because I don't really use them. And they basically funded the rest of my Niv Mizzet deck that wasn't finished yet. Golden dragon sleeves for it, a small white bottle of paint for my miniatures because I hate Citadel paints and I was waiting for them to restock an army painter white. I got a set of bases for my miniatures and a Space Marine like commander thing. I don't really know the Space Marine models, but I'm just gonna kit bash it into Sisters of Battle Canoness afterwards. So I'm gonna work on that while I'm at it. All that just for those like 9 cards that I opened, which is wonderful. Anyway, that's all we're going to cover for right now. As for the upcoming videos, we discussed on the live stream that I might do the architecture of the Zendikar lands, and I might actually take y'all on up on it, but I actually have found a theme on it that I'm going to work out on, so I think I'm going to work on that as soon as I'm done with the storylines. On a separate note, you guys should really jot October 10th on your calendars, because that's going to be a really special day, and I'm not going to say any more of that, and I will not answer any further questions about that date. We'll see what's going on. Anyway, I think that's everything for housekeeping, so let's just get right down to the synopsis. The story opens with a messenger of a very wealthy man looking for an adventuring party, and he's going to this really shady spot where a bunch of adventurers party kind of gather up, and he goes directly to the most well-known adventuring party ran by a man called Tarsa. And he goes in there and he doesn't tell, but we learn through the omniscient narrator that he has been hired for a wealthy man, and as he's approaching the place where he's going to meet this party, he's being trailed by this vampire that introduces Anawan. And it's a special thing for me because I know Anawan is from the Commander decks, but I thought he was a merfolk because I thought his skin was blue. So it didn't click in my brain that we were talking about Anawan from the Commander decks, but we'll get to that to the story discussion as to what kind of effect that had on me. But anyway, vampire is trailing him, and the vampire starts talking about how he wants to redeem himself and to prove his worth after what happened with the Eldrazi and the vampires. And as somebody who didn't read the Zendikar storyline, I have no idea what happened to the Eldrazi and the Zendikar, so I don't know. I might look up it. Let me know what happened on the comments, because I actually have no idea. But anyway, that's his motivation. He wants to redeem himself and the vampires because of what happened. So they are introduced to the main job that they're brought in, and it's that they need to clear this pathway that right now is being terrorized by Grakma, this Hydra that is presented in the storyline in the card. It's then revealed that this adventuring party led by Tarsa has already fought Grakma in recent times and lost one of their party members to the monster, and they have this emotional tie. So we already have that hook in there. Anawan is then startled. He's caught in by one of the members of the adventuring party, and he drops all of his notebooks that he was carrying around because he's more of a scholarly thing. And by the way, a blue vampire is something that fascinates me, but we will get to that later. But it's genuinely fascinating to see a blue vampire and how blue vampire is being written out. But anyway, he spills all of his notebooks out, and they scramble up and they pick him up, and they realize that he has notes on the skyscapes that they're going to go look at. So it's then debated around whether or not he should join the adventure party because they need a 4th member, and he says that his price for joining in is that he wants knowledge and to study the skyscapes that they're going to. He doesn't really want the monetary value that would come from it. The party reluctantly agrees because they need a member, and any help would be there, and it's not like they're actually giving up some money. And it's a good time to touch upon the fact that it's very evident that vampires are vilified by the people of Zendikar. At least the common people, as Tarsa says afterwards. So there's a lot of tension there already. We have that character tension being brought in. So they go in there and they go adventure together, and they go, I believe it's the following day. They struggle to a lot of moments of tension between the party and the vampire, Anawan, because of the fact that he's a vampire. and they just clash heads together. We are introduced to the other two members of the party, Tarsa and Adino, who each have legitimately distinct personalities and mannerisms in the way they talk and behave, but I will gush on the character development later. Let's just move on from now. So they are climbing up this rock overnight, and they just keep mistreating Anawan the entire time, and Anawan is just biting his tongue because he just has this one set goal of getting to the Sky Slave, studying it to get his power, so that he can do something. It's really unclear what he wants to do, but it's mainly because he doesn't really know what he wants. He just wants something to liberate himself from the feelings that he's got inside. But they want to get Skyclave, and once they do, Anawan starts studying the inscriptions and the core writing on the walls and translating it, and kind of teaching Eret what he's learned. And Eret kind of he likes it because he's a cleric himself and he just enjoys a little bit of knowledge on that side. They then run into Grakma and have this fight sequence going out, and they lose pretty badly. Anawan uses the knowledge that he has on like these core writings and inscriptions. Grakma mainly sees through heat. It senses heat throughout the area. So Tarsa commands his party to magically summon ice and snow. So they do that, and they kind of just suppress their body heat so that Grakma doesn't see them, and Grakma leaves. But in this ensuing chaos, Anawan gets hurt really badly. He starts bleeding out. They go to heal him, but Anawan says, no, I have to drink blood. Blood is what heal me. And they have a little bickering moment where they're like, what kind of blood is that? He's just like, it's part of the bugs. And you kind of just take his word for it, because what other choice you got? It's legitimately a vampire. He doesn't have a choice. He needs to drink blood. He drinks the blood and he's healed. From here, they move on to a laboratory, like a set of laboratories where Anawan is just studying inscriptions and writings and everything, trying to piece together what's going on. And he tells the party that this place used to experiment on living creatures of Zendikar, like living beings, genetically modifying them, creating them. And they'd go into the conclusion that Grakma was probably a result of these experiments. And Anawan is just thrilled by this knowledge that he's finding out, and he's wondering what he's going to do about it. The other adventuring members they just want to get out of here because they find like the crumpled body of their former teammate, and it drives one of them to just be an emotional mess, and Tarsa has to go and calm him down. We'll talk about Tarsa's leadership later on because it's rock solid. But they devise a plan that they're going to bait Grakma into coming to this arena, because it's basically like an encapsulating space where they believe Grakma used to be a part of. So they go and they kind of like get him in there. We are met with one more final fight sequence where Grakma's actually beating them legitimately, and Anawan kind of realizes that the fighting is not working out. He dips out, goes amongst like the medicinal cabinets and the potions and everything, and finds a vial that, like, from what he read, understands it to be a sedative for these creatures, and throws it at Grakma, and it breaks apart by one of the knives of the other adventurers, and Grakma's entire body solidifies into stone. They cut off these stone heads, claim it as their prize, and then head back to gain the money. And what ends up happening is that the party now trusts Anawan, because Anawan could have just left. Anawan didn't need to be there. He got what he wanted. He got the knowledge he needed. He didn't need any more. But he finished the job and he saved them. And they kind of take him in, and he becomes a fourth member of their engine party, and kind of just forms this bond with them over this adventure. And the story ends there. So here's where I want to lead into my main discussion of this, and it's where I want to talk to a lot of you about this. And it's what makes this story my favorite so far. And I hate comparing the main story to this because I feel like I'm being mean to the author at that point. But the way that the four-person party is presented here is wonderful. You actually have these four characters that are very distinct, have very distinct personalities, have their own ways of dealing with problems. They have their own way of rationalizing the things happening around them and the way they portray their actions about. So I think what we're going to do is, in order for me to properly explain how the party dynamic is done well from not only a plot narrative perspective, but from also just a writing and literature perspective, I'm just going to take it one at a time. And we're going to start with Anawan. And I want to start with Anawan because if you're reading this, and I like to look at these stories in a vacuum. I don't like to compare them to previous stories, although I do, but I really shouldn't, because I'm supposed to be taking an objective look of these in a literary sense. But if you were to just read the story on its own, completely separated from the magical context that it's in, and read it as a short story on its own, the beginning is wonderful. Like, the opening scene really is intriguing because for a good while you don't really know who the protagonist is. We are introduced to the benefactor's lackey first, and he's described as this regal man, and he's described very in depth by the opening paragraph, which isn't really common for throwaway characters as this guy ends up being. So it's intriguing. Then we're introduced to Anawan, and he's named, which is a really good idea of, like, he's probably going to be the protagonist, but I wasn't sure yet, specifically because I didn't connect Anawan, the name, to the legendary creature, because it just didn't click on me, it being a merfolk, because he's not a merfolk, he's actually a vampire. But that's more my fault for not understanding and not remembering to read cards. But anyway, moving on. It's also reinforced by the title, Hunger. This title is only one word long. It isn't 50,000 words long like the other titles in the series. It's only one word, no sentence, no context. And it really adds to this vague entrance that we get to the storyline. And the word hunger, if you look at this from knowing what's going to happen with Grakma, it implies that it's going to be about Grakma's hunger, but it's really not. The word hunger is more telling of not only the blood that Anawan hungers, but just his hunger for knowledge, his hunger and rush to get the power he needs to give himself the liberation that he seeks. It speaks to his blue and the black in his nature, that hunger is the essence of black. Black is the color of ambition, of wanting to better yourself at any cost. And the blue in him translates this power that he's seeking into knowledge. So at the end of the day, that hunger is for knowledge and power. And it's a wonderful title, but it takes a little while for you to understand what it means. I didn't get it until a couple of pages into the storyline. But hunger aside, let's go back to Anawan. And he is explained to just be this skittering fool who's just trying to sporadically grasp at any kind of liberation. And you can feel it in the way it's written. And I love that. You can feel that he's scattering. He's not unsure. He's second guessing himself. He's like, I need to do this, but he's nervously just trailing behind. He wants to blend in. And he feels this shame of being a vampire because of something that happened that I don't know, and so my apologies for not really knowing the research on this. That introduction is solid, and that essence of blue and black that he's got going on is really reflective as to how he deals with the problems that we have looking forward when he fights Grakma. He doesn't really ever fight. He constantly makes it a point to say and a point to be told by the other characters that he's not really as physically capable to fight as the other adventurers. He's more a scholar. He trusts the teachings of the Seagate. He trusts that the Seagate will know what to do with the information that he brings back. That to him is the power. He doesn't want to learn how to fight. He wants to use his knowledge to accomplish his goals. This mentality not only makes him stand out from the other adventurers in the party, but from most of the main cast across all of the storylines we've written. The closest you get is Jace, but Jace's wanting for power and knowledge over the Lithoform core is more to help his friend. It's a more community-driven wanting to, yes, absolve himself, but mainly for the benefit of his friends. While Anawan seeks knowledge more for his selfish desires. That's where the black comes in. He wants to solve his own problems. But as the story progresses, he uses the knowledge he has to solve the problems not only himself, but of his party. When they're climbing up at night, he uses the things he can learn from his night vision to help them guide up. During the first fight with Grakma, he uses his knowledge to get them out of there safely. He doesn't fight it. He remembers what he learned and uses that to tell the people how to properly get away from Grakma, at least this time, so they can fight him another day. And then when they fight him, he ultimately just defeats them using the things that he learned from the inscriptions that he read. At the end, Anawan uses knowledge as his main tool of power, and he's written with weaknesses. We are constantly reminded of his physical weakness compared to the other party members, and that's good. It doesn't make him a Mary Sue. It doesn't make him a flawless character, and it's a very easy thing to do when you're trying to make a character stand out, is you make them flawless. So I commend the author for giving this character not only the social awkwardness, but this physical discrepancy. He's not weak, but he's definitely weaker than the other members by a huge margin. And that's Anawan. And there isn't much else to say about Anawan. He eventually gets through his arc and finds out that the power he seeks is just the feeling of belonging, but that's more of the theme of the storyline. It's more of just the nice little bow at the end of the story. It isn't really a big character-driven thing. That's not really his character. His character is that knowledge-driven hunger. That hunger is Anawan, and that's... Oh god, I love the title. I love everything about the story. I really do. And I've spoken a lot about the show, don't tell mentality when it comes to characters, where you're supposed to show the way a character is, at the very least, before you say it. You can say it afterwards, but if we got to see that beforehand, it makes it a lot easier to progress and a lot easier to digest. And moving on from that, when you're actually showing things about a character, it's a lot easier to show emotions and concepts or personality traits. And what I mean by that is, like, if you say that a character is breaking things, or that a character pushes somebody away or scoffs, you can display their anger, their emotions easily. You can display how a character feels sad or upset or angry or happy through their emotions and the way they speak. Those are pretty easy to display, but it's a lot harder to display grand characteristics and character traits without directly stating it. And the one thing that sets Tarsa apart from the other characters is his amazing leadership. You can actually feel how he's the leader of the party from not only the way he deals with problems, like he's the one leading. Yeah, he snaps his finger and boom, everybody springs into position. Everybody knows what's going on. He's the one leading them. He's the one telling them what's going to happen. That's a pretty easy way of selling leadership, but there's a different angle of leadership that Tarsa excels in, and his ability to be able to look at his people, his group, his adventuring party, and during stressful situations, stay calm, collected, and keep them focused and moving forward. And exemplary leaders will be able to understand their underlings' strengths and weaknesses and be able to praise them for when they do good things and to guide them to the right path when they do bad things. And there's no better point in time to display this with Tarsa is with the concept of the grief they feel for their fallen friend and Nadino's breakdown when they find his body. Throughout the entire expedition to the Sky Exclave, we are constantly reminded of the death that they suffered, and every time Tarsa is the one that kind of keeps it together. He reminds people that they need to move forward. He shuts up Anawan and tells them what's going on. With just a look, he just glares and they understand what's happening. He keeps them forward. He knows that if they linger on this, it's going to eat them away, and he just, every time he comes up, he just quickly has to push forward. When they are first introduced to the job, Tarsa kind of like accepts it and just wants to talk about the job and kind of keep everybody going. When Nadino has their like breakdown, Tarsa doesn't invalidate the grief that they feel. Tarsa understands that they have this pain and this grief, but instead of reprimanding Nadino, he does what a good leader does and legitimizes their feelings while also reminding them what they need to do and that they're here to avenge their friend, and he kind of pushes them towards the answer. And Nadino's leadership is what makes his character, and it's displayed greatly, and I'm so happy they didn't kill him off. And when he's hurt, he understands his own limitations. He knows he can't wrap the bandages up by himself, and he eventually, although reluctantly, does accept Anawan's help, because that's what a good leader does. A good leader knows when their teammates are doing the right thing. It's weird that he didn't ask Eric for help, but it's just an oversight. I guess he just needed a moment. I understand. We'll just let that one slide. Other than that, the story's like almost perfect. At least in my opinion. I guess I'm just like gushing over the characters anyway, but Tarsa, leader. That's what makes his character. He isn't flawless. He breaks down a couple times. He shows weakness because he's still like, I don't know if he's a human being. I think he's a core. I'm not sure. But he shows humanity. He shows like that, like emotional fragility that humans have mainly. That thing that reminds us that we're still people. He's also given flaws in the fact that he still shits on Anawan just as much as his party. He tries to keep it together, but he still shits on him every now and then. He made him climb the entire thing, leading the way with most of the weight up. And it is in his afterword that he treats him nicely. So it's nice. He's still like a cocky leader at the end of the day, but he's a good leader. He's a very good leader, and that's his thing. He does it well, and that separates him off from the character. Moving on to Nadino. Well, yes, they use they, them pronouns, and it's kind of like solid throughout the storyline. It isn't part of their character. That doesn't make their character, and that's lovely. I love that. It actually didn't register in my brain that they use they, them pronouns until a couple of pages in, because that's not what their character's about. Their character is that playful, teasing, like, carefree spirit that just kind of jokes around, but you can easily tell that this is kind of a front for the grief they feel, because at the end of the day, they are the most emotional character in this entire storyline. Like, they actually show grief, they show weakness, they show anger, they show jokingness, and it's a lot of emotions that Tarsa as leader feels, but isn't allowed to display fully. Eret doesn't really display much, but that's okay. Anawan feels a lot, but it's more of an internal struggle kind of thing, while Nadino, they will feel whatever they feel, and they will display it full stop every time that they feel it, whether it's anger at Anawan, whether it's anger at Gragma, whether it's grief over their friend, whether it's happiness once they get everything out, or when they do that jokingly, like, oh, what happened to dying carefully, you vampire? Like, that teasing thing, it's lovely. And that's their character. Now, I don't want to like simplify these characters into these three main things. It isn't just Anawan's hunger. It isn't just Tarsa's leadership. It isn't just Nadino's emotions. They actually have scenes throughout the play. Not play. Sorry, this is a short story. Why did I say play? I don't know. It reads like a play to me. Like, it's legitimately a small play to me. I would love to see this performed or like scripted out or something. But anyway, they have moments where they kind of like bend the rules of their own character traits to show a little more depth. Again, Tarsa kind of like feels a little emotion. He breaks down a little bit. Not that much, but enough to remind us that he still feels. We are indirectly told through character actions that Nadino's probably the best fighter out of all of them. Even better than Tarsa. At least that's how I read when it came to their maneuvers and their fighting styles. If y'all read them any differently, it'd be wonderful to state it in the comments below to just bring some discussion up, because I read Nadino as the best fighter of them, at least just from the ability to throw a knife from such a far distance and break the bottle thing at the end of the climax. That was great. That's Nadino's character. Eret is a bit of both sides of the same coin. Like, we are told that Eret doesn't talk all that much, and he doesn't. He really doesn't say much of the storyline, at least in comparison to the other characters. So we are told that he doesn't talk much, and he doesn't talk much, but yeah, that's a little bit weak said. But another thing that he does that is really interesting is that he actually values knowledge. We aren't told that he likes to study and that he likes stuff, but we know he's a cleric. And we are told through his ability to look over at Anawan's writings and scriptures and wonder. He has a sense of curiosity to him. He wants to learn the things of the Skysclave, at least not as much as Anawan, but enough, because his clerical kind of like foundation guides him towards that. I don't know where I would put his color identity. I don't think it'd be mainly blue. I honestly see him either being blue-white or just plain white from the way he behaves and all that. Overall, the adventuring party and the way it's written by Brandon O'Brien is wonderful. He remembers to put the characters first. He makes these characters and makes the story revolve around the characters. And that's what you need to do when you write a group of people working together. You have to make sure that every character is distinct. You have to make sure that every character has what they're good at and what they're bad at. And you have to make sure you give each of them enough attention to shine on what they do. And it's great. Aerith gets to heal Anawan. Anawan goes off his things because, of course, he's the main character. Tarsa shows his moments of leadership. Nadino shows their ability to fight and their fitness when it comes to throwing weaponry. Everybody has their moment, and that's great. That wasn't done in the main storyline all that well by A.T. Greenblatt, but I'm not going to put all the blame on A.T. Greenblatt because I genuinely believe, like I said in the other video, that it was an editorial decision that I don't think she actually wanted to write a party, and it shows by the way the writing comes out, because it's so much better when she's writing Nissa, Jason, Ahiri, but I'm trailing off now. This storyline. Very good way of using characters to tell a story and using characters to world build, because we learned a lot about Zendikar right now. We learned a lot about the core in this. At least I did. I'm not sure if they went in depth to the core's like philosophy or scientific achievements in the other books, but here learning about their experiments and stuff, it's really telling as to what civilization lived here in the before times. At least that's how Nahiri states it to be. Like, this grand civilization probably wasn't all that good, and it's really curiosity striking to be able to hear this through the scramblings and the random jotting and learning that Anawan provides in a storyline, because this character then has a function that supersedes the story itself, and he's also teaching the audience what the core were like in the past, or at least what they're capable of. And it actually brings fear into Tarsa and the other adventurers. Like, Tarsa gets angry when Anawan's going to take some of these potions, because Tarsa doesn't want anybody to have the hands to change Zendikar. He doesn't want it. He doesn't think that power should belong to anybody. It is a striking moment in the writing to be able to accept that and to portray that throughout the characters instead of just ham-fisting it in as a lesson to the audience. But anyway, overall thoughts, this story is great. Lovely. It is my favorite of the bunch. I actually want to go buy Anawan's Commander Deck just so I can own him. I might just get him singles, but it's a $20 Commander Deck. I think I'm just going to pick it up. But lovely. I'm not going to pick favorites when it comes to the authors because they all have their strengths and weaknesses, as I've realized reading through all of them. But Brandon O'Brien truly excels in party dynamics and excels in teamwork and camaraderie. And I think this is great. He was a very good pick for this storyline, specifically the story they gave him. I don't know if he would have been able to write the last side story, which is a singular guy in his internal struggle. I don't know how Brandon would have tackled that, but this is great. This is the shoe that fits him, and I'm so happy that I got to write this. So I'm going to call it a night here because it's getting pretty deep into this recording session, but I wanted to gush on these characters so badly. Let me know what you all thought about this, and hopefully Wednesday's storyline will be great. Once again, keep October 10th in your calendars because that's going to be a really nice day. And then after that, we are going to tackle some sort of Zendikar-based art analysis because, God, I have a lot to say about that. So I hope you all have enjoyed your stay at the Ravnican Art Guild, and may you come back whenever you may please, whenever you want to talk literature, artwork, or any kind of analysis. Have a good night, everybody.